Hi there, welcome to Tavern Tales. This is Riley, the Dungeon Master.
And this is Crusail, the player.
And today we're doing something a little bit different, because I realized the other day, we never really did a Session 0, or a Episode 0. This is something that, at least, I've seen a lot of people talk about, and I know not everyone does it, but pretty much this is where, if you're running a game, you sit down with your players and you talk about what kind of game do they want to play, what kind of game do you want to run, what sorts of things should you expect, and that's where you decide, like, alright, we're going to do this in Forgotten Realms, or we're going to do this in Eberron, or we're going to do this in my own homebrew setting. And you talk about it, learn about it, and usually players will make their characters there. When we started this, it had just been that Crusail had made some characters he was real excited about. I had come up with a kind of idea for a show that I was excited about, and we just kind of hopped into it. So we never had a chance to do it, so we thought we would kind of head back and go over some of the stuff about the world, some of the lore and history and sort of setting of it. So that way Crusail has a little better of an idea of what's going on. You guys as an audience might have a better idea. And I can get more things to draw from and make stuff up with.
And if you don't mind, I might also, just so that everybody knows a little bit more about the characters, I thought it'd be good to give them a little bit of backstory, because we've hinted
that's part of Session 0.
Cool.
You make your backstory, and that way I can get some more ideas and kind of build the cultures. Cool. Not exactly to suit your characters, but to go with your characters.
I like this.
So let's start out with kind of general world info. In the world we're playing in, I don't have an official name for the setting yet, but I will at some point come up with one, or one will more likely occur to me. But this is an old world. Like there's been extinction events, and empires have risen and fallen, and you're likely to, while you're exploring, find relics of a past age or a past empire, or pockets of the world that have not been touched by current kingdoms that you find there's a huge city already there, and people are inhabiting it and think that the world is still under the control of some old empire that no one's ever heard of. So there's lots of stuff like that that's happened. It's not a fully explored world either, so there's still wilderness and unknown areas that you could find. And if you do find a place, you might get to name it after yourself or something like that. And if you are a good explorer, you might be approached by powerful people in the world. Some myths and legends and things you've heard are going to be stories from old empires. They might be magical items, or they might be there might be a legend around a forest that no one should ever go in the forest. And no one can quite agree on why, but everyone just knows you don't go in the forest. And that's because back years and years ago, it was basically like the Area 51 of an empire there. So that's why no one goes there. Not because there's anything special there, but because way back when, at some point in history, it was forbidden. That kind of stuff is all over the place.
And then you go there and you find a nasty dungeon where people were tortured for information, yeah? That kind of thing?
Maybe, maybe not.
Alright.
You'd have to go there and find out. But,
I don't want to. Okay, I kind of want to.
Yeah. I bet it would be lots of fun. So I've got some names of some of these extinction events, or some of the big kind of climactic events.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell you too much about them because I haven't quite decided on what point of the time period we're in, or time frame of the world we're in yet. But there's the Eternal Shade, which is a giant eclipse, and the species in the Underdark rose up and conquered the planet at that point. And that lasted for hundreds of years and led to the creation of dwarves. They started during that time period. There's the Wild Age, which is when the Feywild came to kind of in the planar array, the Feywild moved too close and overlapped with the material plane. And that's when the Fey began to actually cross over and inhabit the material plane. And it actually threatened to consume the whole material plane and make it part of the Feywild, because the Fey were trying to bring their two planes into balance. There's the Shattering, which is when giants rose up and tried to conquer the world. I mean, they don't have to rise too much; they're really big anyway. But they destroyed all the kind of kingdoms and empires that were there, and the last few remaining peoples joined together, irrespective of their cultures and differences they'd had, to defeat the giants. And Goliath started after this time period, from when the giants were in charge. There was the Age of Ash, which is the first time dragons were ever seen. They woke up from a ancient slumber and, for some unknown reason, began to just absolutely torch the whole planet. It took a long while, and much of the world was devastated before the most powerful dragons were able to be put to sleep. And now there's only kind of the weaker dragons that still exist. And when I say weaker dragons, I'm talking about like classic D&D dragons are the weaker dragons. These super powerful, mega high-end boss monsters were the weak underlings of these giant dragons.
So we're talking Bahamut level on these big guys.
Bahamut would have been like a mid-tier dragon. And he is a dragon god now.
Wow.
But so now, the dragons, no one knows what the dragons are doing. They haven't been seen a long time. And so far, the last event that I've come up with is the Calamity, which is when a rift to one of the planes of hell opened, and devils and demons kind of entered and started ruining the earth in their own unique way, meaning demons were just straight up destroying everything, and devils were taking people and pushing them to the point of despair, kind of making deals with them, tricking them, making them do things that make themselves miserable. And it took until the Celestials intervened, the angels and divas and all those sorts of people, to help people to kind of close that portal and rid the world of demons.
Well, yeah, who wants to deal with divas? Seriously.
So those are kind of the extinction events that have happened. And after each of those, the world kind of resets and restarts, gets covered over, and different peoples create their kingdoms. Now, these pages I can actually give you, because these are... No, actually, I can't give you that one. I shouldn't have put that one on there. I can give you names and descriptions now. These are all of the kind of kingdoms and groups of people that exist.
Okay.
Right now, you have a map that is just kind of a small region. That map, for the most part, is the realm of Lion, or Leon. I don't remember. Yeah, Leon, that's how you say it, with the Y. And that is one of the major human kingdoms.
And I see you've got marked here Invidia to the west, Loral to the south, and Leon just inhabits the entire western hemisphere of the map.
Yeah, Leon is this whole kind of eastern swath down all the way to here, and then, off this way a great ways.
All right, and then Loral is where the desert starts?
Laurel is actually past the desert to the south.
Okay. Natural barriers so that the kingdoms can't just go and start attacking each other, huh?
A little bit, yeah. There's also... So those are the three major human kingdoms. They're the big ones, they're the powerful ones. Leon is actually a waning kingdom. Even though most of this region is Leon, people don't really consider them Leonese until they're way over past this side of the map. But it is on the maps itself. It still says that it's their region here. If they came and collected taxes, these people would give them to them. But you don't have a strong connection to the culture if you're from this part of the world.
Got it.
In kind of that hills area, there's that greenish place surrounded by mountains, That is a small human kingdom called Far Eldrith, which is currently being run by a woman named Lady Evelyn. And they're a fairly peaceable people. They come travel sometimes. They're one of the few groups that still use this ancient trade route, which is this kind of road drawn on the map now that goes through the town that Tavern Tales takes place in. That town is called Forest Home, which I don't think we've actually said yet.
No, I think also maybe it didn't really matter to Kana and everybody. They were just...
Yeah, they don't even know that it's really a place yet. They've just been there, and now that they might be living there, they might ask about it and find out more about it. So those are kind of the human places. There's one more minor human kingdom, which is the Seeker's Home. That's out near Invidia, and that is a religious country. Think Vatican City inside of the Roman Empire. That's kind of what Seeker's Home is like. It's a separate but incredibly small country, but it's powerful because it's the seat of a major religion.
Got it.
Then we have dwarven kingdoms. There are 3 different dwarven... Yeah, I guess kingdom is the best word for them. We have this mountainous region off in kind of the northeast of the map, which is Underhome, and that is a fairly large dwarven kingdom, and they are very peaceable with Leon, and they are kind of the line of defense against the Underdark in this setting. They are keeping the Drow and the Dwergar from invading up into the surface.
Always a good thing.
Yeah, and they're nice. People know about them. They're renowned as good craftsmen, good warriors, and they have incredible skill with metals and gems and all sorts of things. You have another dwarven kingdom called Dwarfhome that people only really know of as legend. They don't know where it is. They've never seen someone from Dwarfhome. They read about it in the history books as being an important place, but it might be gone for all people actually know about it. And then you have the Dwergar kingdom underneath in the Underdark called Evanstone, and they are constantly at war with both Underhome and with the Drow kingdom called Umbra in the Underdark. And those 2 Underdark groups being at war is the only thing keeping either of them from overwhelming Underhome and breaking out onto the surface again. So they need to stay at war. Then you have the Elven communities. There are the Star Seekers, which are a group of elves that are very closely tied to the Glimmer Fae, which are the kind of animalistic, bestial Fae group.
Okay.
And they live in the southern forests down here below where we are in Forest Home.
Okay.
Then you have the Umbra, which I already talked about, were the Drow in the Underdark, and the Aurelia, which are a nomadic desert group of elves that live in that desert area between Leon and L'Oreal, or Laurel. Let's see. There's a halfling and a gnomish kingdom. Kind of those 2 are intertwined. You can think of them as they're the same race in this setting, but they have like the different stats and stuff from the player's handbook. And that's called Kinderinken, and it's the only major halfling and gnome kingdom. Halfling and gnomes, for the most part, are nomadic. They actually move around in bright, colorful wagons. What group is that? Have you ever read The Wheel of Time?
I couldn't. I read it when I was younger, but I just couldn't bring myself to get. Oh, am I thinking of the film? No. Yeah, The Wheel of Time. I read most of it, but then just I read when I was young, and the concepts were a little too out there for me, and I got bored because I couldn't keep up with exactly what's going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Well, in that series, there's a group of people called the Tinkers, who are pacifistic, peaceful people. They wear bright, fancy colors. They like singing and dancing. That's kind of what the halfling and gnome.
Oh, sorry. I think I was thinking of A Wrinkle in Time.
A Wrinkle in Time.
That's the one that I had trouble with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a little bit different, but that's that kind of colorful, garish. Think like all right, what's another example? Gypsies, kind of like the media portrayal of gypsies.
Okay.
But if somebody went up and splashed various neon-colored paints all over everything they owned, like very garishly colored, that's kind of what what halfling culture is all like and all about.
Just sort of a celebration of all things vivid and enjoyable.
Fun, pleasant.
Sounds like I could get along with them.
Yeah.
Maybe not Kana, but I'm sure Kale would have fun, and Tukra probably would just worry about stepping on someone.
Yeah, he would constantly be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I almost stepped on you.
Yeah,
I couldn't see you down there."
And all the little halfling children would start climbing on him like he was a plaything.
Oh yeah, and if you ever go to Kindringen, that's where basically like retired elderly halfling and gnomes live, and newborn children. Once you turn 8, you go out with your parents. You go back out on the road with your parents on joining their caravan.
Okay.
And then once a child turns 18, they go back to Kinderingen and they create their own kind of caravan to go out with a group of others.
All right.
And that's how they go out and see the world. Let's see, after that we have orcs. They have different tribes and they live in kind of wilderness areas. If they don't have a kingdom of their own, because if they are kind of naturally and elementally greedy for power. So as soon as one orc thinks the leader orc is not able to control everyone anymore, he or she will immediately try to seize power, and power struggle breaks up, smaller tribes result.
So it's sort of the classic barbarian culture, where it's all about, once you're too old to fight, you are not really fit to actually have any position besides maybe
you can be an advisor, maybe, or a storyteller. Yeah. So that's kind of how they work. Half orcs come out of orc stuff from time to time, and they are raised by the orcs until it's clear that they aren't strong enough to stay with the orcs, and then they are abandoned. But certain groups, certain areas will take them in, and they are human enough that they can kind of overcome that savage lifestyle and raising that they have. Sometimes they can't, and they make their own kind of small groups, continuing that same sort of orcish, tribal, barbarian culture. But you might find them occasionally in any other city. Same thing with half-elves. You might find half-elves in any city. But that's just because they have... Their human side kind of gives them a wanderlust. They feel a need to travel and move about. They don't like to stay in one place very long. Not because elves kick them out. After this, we've got Genasi, Tieflings, Dragonborn, Aasimar, Kenku, and Lizard Folk are all rare, and they're caused either by having some sort of strangeness with the pregnancy, either like Genasi, where it is a mortal man or woman who mates with one of the different kind of genies, and that results in a Genasi sometimes. Tieflings are the same thing, where you're corrupted by some kind of demonic or devilish power. Aasimar, a woman might be blessed, or a man or a woman might be blessed by the gods, and their child might have celestial power in them. Kenku, Lizard Folk, and Dragonborn are all made through magical rituals. Kenku, they don't have their own cultures because it takes a wizard of great power to make one.
Are they able to procreate and create more of their species after that?
No, they are all sterile.
Huh.
They are single generational peoples. The Kenku are made in flocks. Their ritual creates a flock of Kenku that all work together. They're usually... They might go off on their own, very rarely, but they're usually servants to the creator of the flock. Lizard folk are... There is a certain place in the world that turns humans into lizard folk if they go there. And that's where they come from.
Wait, so it's just a natural magic of the location?
It's a natural location. Nobody knows why it happens or how it happens, but it happens. And then Dragonborn is kind of like... It was a magic that was researched and attempted to be made as a dragon, as like looking into dragon slaying. It requires the eggs of the eggs of a dragon and a magical ritual, and it converts a person, gives them kind of their draconic elements and stuff. So that all those kind of mean, if for example you find that place where humans turn into lizard folk and you wanted to turn into a lizard folk, you could do it, and you could swap over to being a lizard folk character. Or if you get a dragon egg and you wanted to try and do that ritual, that's something you totally could do, and you could become a Dragonborn. Interesting.
Or it could be forced upon somebody.
That is true. We've only got 3 groups left. I did not realize there were so many different kinds of people in 5th edition already. The Firbolg are actually the only race that I'm gonna say if you're making a new character, we can't do that. Okay. Because Firbolg are the form that incredibly powerful Fae take on the material plane. Got it. So like that giant tree that Tukra was talking to, communicating with, he will be if you meet him in the material plane, he will be a Firbolg. All right. Which are kind of like half giant, half Fae creatures.
I've seen pictures of them. They all sort of have the beet red, the large red nose, and all that stuff. They're
a classic Irish or Gaelic kind of mythological creature.
Yeah. They take on something. They're sort of like a troll, but more intelligent, and they're almost like wise men.
They're sort of like natural druids. Okay. They're not druids, but they're protectors of the world, and they're connected to plants and animals. And
so Tukra might have met one in his past.
Possibly, yeah. We'll have to figure that out. Let's see. Goliath. I would actually like your input on Goliath, because there are only 2 communities of Goliath in the world. There's the one that Tukra comes from, and there's the other one. And one of those is in Invidia. The other one is in Lyon. It is... that's Underhome. They are from this area, which is a large mountain in the middle of kind of a lake region. It looks almost like... It's almost like there once was a huge, incredibly tall mountain that got literally shoved down into the ground.
And then water collected around it?
And water collected around it from it. It's still a tall, tall mountain that goes up. Like, it's still probably the tallest mountain in the world. So, one of them, they're both very similar. They have the same sort of classic Goliath, competitive, you need to be strong, strongest. Strength is power, strength is dignity, that sort of thing. But the one group has a very important cultural significance to music. That's the group that Tukra comes from. And the other group has a very large cultural appreciation for architecture and building. Which one... where would you want Tukra to be from? Would you want him to be from the one here on the giant mountain, or the other one in Invidia where it's a big mountain range?
It would have to be Invidia, because actually when Tukra was cast out, he actually was literally cast down.
Oh, true. I forgot. He went down. He went right down into the valley. So
the other thing you also know, Tukra can't swim. He doesn't know how to swim.
Oh, that's good.
None of his kin really, because in their mountain range,
there were small streams, and that was about
and small, relatively small lakes, mountain lakes, and nobody needed to swim because they were all big enough that nobody could ever drown unless they somehow managed to get paralyzed and fall down.
Yeah, unless they laid down in the lake on purpose.
Yeah, they could wade in. As far the deepest part of any lake would go up to maybe Tukra's mid neck. He could always breathe if he was ever around water.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you've got your Goliath group, and the other one is in Lyon.
Makes sense also kind of because they would have to learn how to build structures around, not having any base below them, just water.
Yeah.
Of course, maybe they also know how to swim. Who knows?
Yeah. What were their names? Well, I can't remember both of them. So since you're helping me make this, what should be the name for our musical Goliaths? What do their culture call themselves?
I wish that they gave more examples of what Goliath usually sounds like. It's usually they like their syllables. How about Dacus Cultus?
Dacus Cultus?
Yes. And actually, we'll call it. One thing I learned is that every Goliath name ends with a vowel. So how about Dacus Kalasa?
Kalasa? Okay.
Yeah. Dacus Kalasa.
So, Goliath names end in vowels. Gotta remember that. Dacus Kalasa, and
I had a fun. That's why Tukra's last name ended. It's most Goliath last names, and they they end in a vowel and are 6 syllables, 4 to 6 syllables. It actually explains it in the handbook too, which was fun to find.
All right, so that's how that works there. So then our other group, because they are divergent, are the Sewers.
All right.
Their names never end in vowels, and they try to have short names wherever possible.
All right.
Which that will be interesting to see how if Tukra ever interacts with them or decides to. Alrighty. So both of those Goliath communities have they believe themselves to be the only Goliaths in the world. They have they have very little interaction with others. They live in mountains, so not that many people go there. And the Sewers here have natural barriers that people don't go past very much or want to go past.
That everybody knows that's Sewers territory.
Yeah, and they kind of stay away because they're like, oh, those giant people they kick us out every time we try to go there. Let's not go there. But they have their history and their lore tells them that once they both believe that they once had they had some weaker cousins that they dealt with. So they both believe that they in the past were the stronger, protective, older group.
All right.
And the Sewers remember that their cousins were greatly talented in music, and their music had great power and helped them protect them in battle. And the Dacus Kalasas remember that their weaker cousins were brilliant craftsmen and were able to build a house out of anything. They could build a home out of any material, any place, any time. So that's kind of their history and legends, and
all right.
They would have fun interacting. And then the Triton, the Mer people, they have a vast underwater kingdom. That's actually a giant lake.
Ah.
So further up north would get to the end of the land, and there would be kind of the sea beneath it.
All right.
They're very widely spread. They're really friendly with sailing cultures that show a lot of respect to the sea. Cultures that just have ships kind of as a mode of transportation alone. They don't ever go out for pleasure sailing. They don't have homes built by the sea out of respect for the sea. They overfish. They do all that sort of stuff. Or pollution. The Triton actively interfere with those groups.
That's what will get trident up your butt while you're asleep, huh?
Exactly. But otherwise, they're actually very rare because they do not reproduce often. And, well, their kingdom stretches across the whole of the ocean floor, which, similarly to Earth, this planet has a lot more ocean than it does land. There's still, you might have like a standard human house, or at least in the US, I think a pretty standard house is somewhere around 1,000 to 2,000 square feet or something like that. I might be a little off in those numbers. The standard Triton home is like 1,000, or is like 200 to 400 square miles. They own huge, gigantic tracts of land. And they live there by themselves, and occasionally go talk to other people. So they don't have too much like communal culture. So that's all the kind of setting and peopled stuff. So moving on to Kale, Tukra, and Kana. We know where Tukra comes from now.
Yeah, he's from...
We know about his culture a little bit. Where do you want Kale to come from?
Thing is, not even Kale knows.
Well, when he was raised as a gladiator, where was he?
Kale was raised by a bard charlatan by the name of Don Soscura.
Don Soscura, okay.
Adopted Kale, quote unquote. Yeah. So gave Kale his last name gave him his entire name. His parents never named him. They sold him off as a baby.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Dance was not above telling Kale that he was
property and...
Yeah. He always seemed to have sort of a mixed relationship with Kale, where he knew that this kid was supposed to was an investment and all that, but at times he also seemed almost fatherly until he turned around and became a businessman again and treated Kale like he was just a slave, which he was, unfortunately. But yeah, Kale Dance was part of a caravan that traveled all over Lyon, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and they would make trips into Nvidia as well, but their home base was Lyon. They stayed in cities. They considered Lyon to be where they were from.
All right, Kale is Leonese caravan, and did Don Soscura have a? Since eventually, obviously, Kale was a gladiator for him. Did they have a home arena? Were they in a major city where that was?
The capital.
They were in the capital?
Yeah.
All right.
The capital of Lyon, whenever you feel like revealing that. He survived that long because he was a smart businessman. Until he betrayed Kale and... Yeah.
He betrayed Kale for a smart, clever business reason.
Yeah.
Wasn't a good reason.
Yeah.
He was a bad man, but...
Yeah.
It made sense.
Well, it made sense to him because also, what did he care if his celestial ended up in the hands of devils?
Exactly.
But yeah. So Kale learned the trade. He actually... The thing is that the more I think about Kale, the more I try and pattern a little bit after Guts. In that...
Okay.
Yeah. He never had to deal with any creepers in the band. But yeah, Dance is sort of his... Why do you like him on Gambino? Oh,
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of being in a mercenary army, there was a gladiatorial guild.
Yeah, and there were it was that the troop they were all different kinds of bars. Yeah, they had a gladiatorial group that whenever they went into a town, they would stage fights and all that kind of thing. But they would also they would actually get into the gladiatorial bouts in the area. But they would act. Kale was trained with them. His flashy combat came from Dance training them in sort of the bardic traditions of stage combat for plays, for stuff like that. Great battles, scenes from the calamities that you described.
Yeah. like, normally these bards, when they did their gladiatorial stuff, they were all play fighting.
Yeah.
But Kale learned to actually fight that way.
And he was a natural at it, and Seraphina helped too.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing, no matter how motherly and loving an angel is, they know that any child that they have to raise in the material plane is going to have to fight to survive. So Seraphina helped teach him, which kind of came to a surprise when for the entire troop when one day Kale stays up all night one night and suddenly he is besting guys who the day before he couldn't fighting.
Touch, yeah.
Seraphina would guide him, would give him sort of a 360-degree view of the fight of his arena, so he knew exactly how he should parry and block, and she would whisper in his ear directions until he got good enough that he didn't have to be directed. He just knew how to fight.
Okay.
And that was that was one of the things, and once again, Dance was no fool. He could tell that something was guiding Kale. And he knew, he didn't actually know.
Kind of tipped him off, and he figured it out from there.
Stuff had to go from there. Eventually, Kale started casting magic without having to do anything. The light magic that any Azamar can use. When he did that, he showed it off as sort of a trick. Like
he was like, "Hey, cool! Check out this cool thing I can do. You guys can do some magic. I can finally do a little bit too." Yeah,
and thing is that Dance had no idea why Kale's parents had put him up or had sold him off to him. But from the beginning, it was just that his parents didn't want to have to deal with having to raise a celestial emissary.
All right.
Which, not what. Yeah.
And did Kale's parents know that he was an Azamar?
Seraphina spoke to them when he was born.
Okay.
But the problem is...
They chose to abandon him because of that.
They were scared, is one thing. They were terrified of the prospect of what that would bring for them.
Yeah, I mean, they were in a major city, and having a child is difficult enough to start with when you're being told, hey, your child's going to be a messenger of the gods. It's kind of tough. People are going to treat you like you're crazy. Alright, so one more question. After Kale left, are any of Dance's caravan still... Did Dance's caravan kind of survive the
Kale's onslaught?
Big incident? Yeah.
Kale stormed in, killed Dance and left, but
the rest of the caravan kind of is fine.
He had no qualm with them. A lot of them were his friends. A lot of them treated him more like family than Dance ever did. But they were also sworn to Dance and to the caravan, and in their eyes, it was a betrayal. So if they ever found him again, they would have to have a reckoning.
They would have to follow through with their traditional punishment.
Whether or not that's lethal is up to them.
We'll have to find out what their history books say about betrayal.
Yeah.
All right.
So Kale left it with that, and he's not. If the time comes, he'll deal with it, but he doesn't want to hurt them, no matter how pissed off he is.
As you said, he has no quarrel with them.
Yeah. And I'm guessing next you'll want to be asking about Kana.
Kana, finding out where she is from would be lovely as well.
Kana Nilva is Lauralian. She's from the south. Her mother was actually aristocratic.
All right. That makes perfect sense. Lauralians are all about beauty, are obsessed about it.
But when she became pregnant with the child of a stranger who just left soon after she was conceived, it became a smear on her family's name, and she was cast out. Fortunately, her mother was raised well enough to have been trained in how to fend for herself, in how to create a business for herself. Being aristocrat doesn't just mean you were born into money; it means you had to earn it.
Yeah, and she knew how to earn it.
Yeah.
So, what kind of business did her mom start?
Fineries, actually. She was a talented weaver. Created rugs. Actually, managed to imbue a few too. With certain properties, glamours.
Yeah, using special materials and that sort of thing.
One of the favorite things for local families. She was also a charitable woman, having lost everything. She knew what it felt like to have to.
When she finally was able to stand on her own 2 feet again, she wanted to help others because she knew what it was like to be down there.
Yeah, but so she also loved to make little. She was sort of the. She was a favorite person to visit among the children because she also created hovering carpets, levitating carpets that would just carry kids around. it also helped her with her business because she could haul a whole bunch of stuff using levitation rugs. Along with that, she helped develop silks. She also did a little bit of sculpting and metal crafting.
Okay, so she did various forms of artwork, primarily weaving.
Yeah.
She was able to, once she'd kind of gotten off her feet, she was able to obtain the sort of really expensive ingredient or items needed to make some of these semi-magical things.
It wasn't just that, though. It was also her hired help. There was a young man who came into her life shortly after she had started up her business, and he was skilled in sort of basic magics, enchanting magics. And they, as time went on, they actually fell in love, and Kana ended up with a half-sister.
A half-sister?
The Enchanter
had a daughter.
The Enchanter and her mother had a daughter and a son, actually. Problem was that the Enchanter didn't tell anybody. He kept it from everybody, even his kids, everybody in the town. He was actually a runaway from another part of Loral. He used to be an arcane trickster for a thieves guild.
I was wondering how Kana was going to end up connected with the Loralian thieves.
Yeah. He tried his best to keep under the radar. He had changed his face. He had done everything he could to protect himself and to protect those that he had come to love. He loved Kana like his own children.
Like a normal daughter, yeah.
Yeah. He loved Kana, and he loved Kana's mother, who I will... Jesma. Jesma Nilva was her name.
Jesma?
Yeah.
And do you want to come up with a name for the Enchanter now, or should we leave that for later?
His name was Dario.
Okay.
Dario Watts.
Dario Watts. And I would assume he took the Nilva name rather than sticking with Na.
Yeah, he became Dario Nilva. And... Yeah, he became Dario Nilva, and Watts wasn't even his original name anyways. He was trying to sound foreign, was the thing, because he wanted to have a name that sounded more like it came from Nvidia or Lyons.
Yeah, Dario is a classic Nvidia name.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so Dario, but eventually the Thieves Guild caught up, and Dario had been training all of his kids in how to fight like a street grifter, and being from the middle class, they all had to deal with daily ruffians and stuff like that. You can't go anywhere without having to do at least one pugilist. So yeah, he had been teaching them how to fight, how to defend themselves, and Jasmine helped as well. I mean, she had some combat training from being an aristocrat and being having tutors and stuff like that.
She learned how to duel when she was young.
Yeah,
every Loralian has to know how to duel. Yeah. If you're a noble, that's kind of like half of what they do.
Yeah. So, but then when the guild finally caught up, they don't even really know how it happened. I guess Dario's magic gave it away, or somebody heard about him, and there was something iconic about him that couldn't be removed.
Something gave it away. Nobody knows exactly what happened that let the Loralian thieves catch on, but they did.
So they sent hitmen, they sent killers who burned Kana's family's house to the ground. Dario managed to get her out, and managed to get her and her siblings out. Unfortunately, Jesma was the first one. She and Dario were both awake when the thieves came, and they both tried to fight them off, but Jesma was killed as the house was set ablaze by Dario because, unfortunately, he didn't want to leave his love's body, but he also couldn't let... He was trying his best to make sure the thieves couldn't get out either. But he managed to get
to get his kids out.
Yeah, Kana and her half-siblings out. But then the last guy, the smartest of all the hitmen, the sort of the ringleader, he had thought, send in... if you're expecting booby traps, send the boobs in first.
Exactly. He knows Dario. Yeah. He knows what he's like, and he knows that these guys are not going to be able to take him out. Yes. At least not safely.
So, just as he got him out, he was telling Kana and the kids to get to the river, get to a boat, and get out of town. And he would try to lead them away. Right in front of them, a sword goes through the back of Dario's neck and out through his throat.
Dramatic.
And Dario manages to get a knife into, as he's choking on his own blood, he manages to get a knife into the leg of...
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he has a short sword, and he actually manages to sever the lower leg, the lower right leg of his attacker.
Could I steal that pencil for a moment? Thank you.
Which means that Kana has a chance to escape along with her siblings. Or at least that was the hope. But some of the men got out and managed to grab Kana's siblings, so now they're in the hands of the Thieves Guild. They're basically... Kana doesn't know what happened to them. She managed to get away.
They split. The thieves didn't know that Dario didn't know that Dario had had any children. They just knew where he was. They found out where he was somehow.
Yeah.
But they have Dario's two blood kids.
Yeah.
But they don't know about Kana.
Yeah. And so, Kana ran away, and she was actually told by Dario to find an old friend of hers, an old thieves friend, somebody who had successfully gotten out of the guild and never been found, unless he wanted to be found. Dario's death, Dario and he had actually kept in touch. Mm-hmm. When Dario stopped sending messages, that notified him that something was wrong.
Something had happened.
So, Kana, she was partially searching and just partially hiding, waiting for something to happen. But with no real training, it was easy for this guy to find her. This guy, his name was he just went by Z, actually.
Okay.
But he spelled it Z-E-E.
Okay.
And Z became her trainer. He took her under his wing, taught her everything that she now knows about being a killer.
Yeah, you trained her in the assassin arts.
Yes.
All right. Did he tell her too much about the Lauralian thieves? Would he be telling her about her father and kind of her association with that? And
you mean with her genie father or with Dario?
With Dario, with her adoptive father.
He would have explained what happened. Kana was old enough to be curious and to want to know exactly why these men killed her mother and her adoptive father.
Okay. And does Kana want to kind of get back at the Lauralian thieves? Does she hope to gain power and strength out in the world and then come back and resolve her issue?
That was Z's one request to her. He was also a bit older, and he actually passed away.
Oh, he passed away already?
Yeah, when Kana actually has only been adventuring for a year. Mm-hmm. Z was old enough that, eventually an illness got him, and he passed away, and his last request to her was that before she tried to make amends and to go find what she had lost, her siblings, to go and see more of the world, to gather allies, and make sure that she was truly ready to go back and face her demons.
Yeah. Alright, well, that is a gold mine. That's going to be a lot of fun later.
Yeah. Z was also cultured enough to know about Genasi and explain to her why suddenly her skin was turning blue. Because originally she just had very pale skin.
It didn't come out until she was maybe 16 or 17 or something. Actually, when it started deepening in hue. Yeah,
it had started to tint actually when she was 13, and when she was still pale enough that she just looked like maybe she was lacking pigment in her skin. It just looked
like some people have a real deep, a real blue undertone to their skin.
Yeah, but that started to deepen right after Z took her in.
Okay. After she went through this traumatic event, it kind of activated her genie ancestry.
A little bit. It was also a bit of puberty because she had just turned 13.
Natural bodily changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she had always had the white hair, so everybody just thought that maybe she was
something
albino.
weird was up. Yeah. Okay. So that's good. So we've got our backstory a little bit more kind of fleshed out for our characters. We did a little bit of Tukra's backstory the other day. We went over our kingdoms and a little bit of the sort of history of the world. Now, it's time to talk about the tone of the campaign. Which, I guess to start out, how are you liking things so far?
I'm loving it. I mean, to all of you listening, I really only started D&D as a pastime after I got out of college. I played a little bit in college, And then, Riley and all of our buds, they all started to really get into the same mode of life, and D&D became a much easier reality for all of us. So the thing is that me, Wickersham, who you've seen in some of our video game videos, his campaign that we're all part of is really the first full-on D&D campaign I've ever been a part of. This is my second, really, and this is more my speed, because me is a very talented storyteller and a very talented gamer, but he goes on hard mode immediately, and it's not what I was looking for in a D&D campaign.
Yeah.
Not all the time, at least.
Yeah, it's having some of that like high tension, high stakes is fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But then when you're fighting for your life to get just one scrap of reward every day.
Yeah, when everything's high tension, nothing's high tension.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it. I've done a few kind of like one shots and short things before, but I've never done anything long term prior to this running it. I've been in a couple longer campaigns other than this, but this is also fairly early on in my D&D career. What was I going to say for this? So we've got, you know the 3 pillars of play: exploration, role play, and combat. If you had to put those in order from most wanted to least wanted, what's your order? What do you want more than anything? What do you want less than anything?
The thing is, I want all of them equally.
Okay, so all of them equally is...
I enjoy all
it is a valid
aspect.
choice.
Though me would argue that I enjoy the combat more than other things. But yeah, combat... I enjoy combat and balance, but it's not as much fun if all you're doing is fighting and fighting and fighting. There's got to be something that fleshes out your characters.
Well, I mean, combat is an incredibly important element of D&D. You could look at it as... If you say all three... If you say exploration, role-play, and combat are all equals, combat's kind of the first amongst equals, or the most equal of them all. Cause
it's what you develop most of your character for as it is.
I mean, you can develop it. You can develop them more for role-play or more for exploration if you want.
That's true.
But the bulk of the rules are about combat, and the bulk of character features are about combat. So of course it makes sense that people will think about combat a lot. So... Clearly, combat has a important role in it. So I'll try and take a balanced approach to all 3 of them. I've tried to do that so far, but I'll continue on that. Right, so far I've kind of been giving you... I like magic items a lot. I think they're fun.
Yeah, I agree.
So I've been giving you several. I will once everybody's got a couple, I will probably slow down on giving them. Like it won't be like every single time you go on an adventure you get a magic item. It'll be, at some point or later, it'll more be like, I've decided, you know what, that cold iron dagger isn't really cutting it anymore for a improved weapon or for a magical item. I gotta give Kana something new. So that's when she'll get her next thing, when I feel like what you already have isn't good enough anymore. Or if you decide to try and make something. Like if you decide to seek out a blacksmith to make some kind of magical item, that's a way to get a magical item. Or if you decide to try and craft something, like you were trying to enhance the Rowan rod the other day. That's a way that you can kind of spur on getting something like that.
Right.
And of course...
Making the Rowan rod into a spear.
Yeah. And of course, if you ever feel like I really think I should get another magic item, ask. There are artifacts and things scattered all over the world.
Well, I'm hoping eventually Kale will find something that's to his liking.
Oh yeah, as I said earlier, we were talking about how Kale looks, how I see him as kind of like a flaring cape sort of guy. So there's a cape out there just for Kale. I don't know. I have a rough idea of where I'm going to put it. So I don't know when he's going to find it, but it exists, and he will probably find it soon. Because you already know about the place where it's going to be. So you just got to go there.
All right.
That brings me to something else. in terms of exploration, I gave you that map. This is kind of our region map.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to move out further, I can spread it out and make more of kind of like we can either move down and get what the layout is down in the Kingdom of Loral or over towards the Kingdom of Invidia. And we can move down to those areas if you want to take the time to actually traverse all that distance and go down there.
Eventually, Loral will be on the agenda because
I mean, Kana has to go there at some point.
Yeah, but really, my style of play with this kind of thing is that you'll see it, especially if we ever do videos of Skyrim or Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, is that I like to wander around a little bit in one area, and then I do a big offshoot in one direction, and then I come back to my central hub and offshoot to another direction.
And that is kind of what our original idea for this campaign would be. It was going from one place and doing adventures around and hearing stories from people in that area.
Yes.
Which is another thing to say. You already going to the goblin or to the farm the other day, you already saw. There will be times where you'll find a landmark or a land place that will give you information. Right. And will show you points of interest. Which I will mark them down on my own map, but you also can mark them down on that map. So you'll end up with a lot of places you can investigate on there. Probably not every single hex will have something, but there's a ton of stuff out there. Like I said, you're liable to find cities underground, covered over by forest or overgrown.
Makes me think of when they discovered Troy.
Yeah. And there are places that have been excavated and totally wrecked like Troy was totally wrecked. It's like, there's lots of things to see and find. And if you think something sounds cool, pursue it, and something cool will probably be there. So that's kind of our adventure. That's kind of the exploration thing. I will say, how many locations do you want to find out about? Like, do you want to have a max number of locations to explore? Should I stop giving you new ones?
No.
After a certain point, or
no. I think that Kale, in my mind, is Kale, Kana, and Tukra are just they're a young adventuring party that are just trying to see more of the world. Especially Kana. Kale is just he lives day by day because that's how he's always lived. And Tukra, Tukra is kind of just he doesn't admit to it because he's been a loner all of his life, but he is really happy to have this family that has taken him in and who he took in, and he just wants to make sure that these two are able to live out their days. Yeah,
we've discussed how he's almost like another adoptive father for them.
Yeah,
he's the slight father figure for them right now.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's something. At least when you were telling me about it, I thought that was something that Tukra thought was really, really important. Whether or not he shows it is another matter, but to him it really is kind of a hugely important thing. So one last element, and I think we can wrap this up, is I kind of had an idea for level progression, since ideally we'll be making it pretty far. I like the idea that there are we would have kind of a quest for reaching a certain point in different classes. So say like Kale, when he hits level 10, he won't be able to move on to level 11. He'll have hit a wall. He needs to find someone to train him to kind of get that extra agility and speed and power necessary to make his 3 attacks at once.
Tukra may know a few people.
Yeah, and we can do backstory stuff, or it could be, that would be a great time to take a journey to Tukra's homeland.
Yeah.
To meet the Goliaths.
Yeah, if they don't try to kill Tukra on sight.
Maybe that's the time to meet the other Goliaths.
Yeah.
Though he'll have to find out about them first, because he doesn't know where they are.
Or if they kill everybody on sight rather than just him.
Yeah. But, it would be to get to level 11, Kale needs to find a trainer. And he needs to do some sort of thing to train. To get to level, I might actually switch I would have to switch up Kana's a little bit, because I would want to do the reliable talent feature.
Right.
Which is the one that if you are proficient in a skill roll when you make it, you can treat the D20 die as a 10 instead of any number less than 10.
Okay.
Which is absolutely absurd.
That is a bit broken.
You can make a character that at level 9, I think you normally get it at level 11, but I would swap this to 9, because I wouldn't want to create a level disparity between the characters.
Mm.
You can get a character who has, I think, 16 of, or like 12 of the 18 skills or something like that they're proficient in pretty easily. Which means just as a rogue, almost all the time you're rolling at least like a 14 or a 15. And things you have expertise in by level 11, your minimum roll on that thing, it's a friggin' 22.
Jeez.
And that's with like normal +3 stats. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
But like she would have to find a mentor to teach her how to like show her kind of just up her skills, get her better at doing stuff.
Right.
And that would be a quest of its own. I was toying with an idea that in this world, druids, because druids are about balance, druids are actually connected with each other, and there are only so many high-level druids. So like when he hits level 10, there's actually only 10 druids that are level 10 or higher in the world. One is level 10, one is level 11, one is level 12, so on and so forth. So when you, as a druid, get to that level of power, you have to actually go and have a contest with this other druid. And if you are able to best him in this natural contest, you assume his place in that order.
Interesting.
So like from then on, though I might toy it around and have it just be like there's only so many above this level, you just have to go and replace one of them, not go and replace one every level. But does that sound like a kind of fun idea to you, or
I like the
are
idea.
you not big on it?
No, I like the idea. It'll add a little bit of adventure to it, and besides, who knows? Maybe who we're looking for is right in our backyard, or right next door.
Oh yeah, you'll have to find them, but they might be easy to find, or they might drag you around the world looking for them.
It's sort of like also just the level. I mean, I've played plenty of games where there's just a level unlock where you have to you have to do a certain thing to be able to get to the next tier.
Yeah.
It's not just leveling up anymore. So so I'm cool with that, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, we're already doing milestone leveling, so this is just saying like, hey, for certain things, it's not going to be doing cool stuff is enough to get you to this next level. You have to go do a certain thing. All right, so I'll kind of refine those ideas a little bit, and is there anything else you want to know? Any other thoughts or questions you have?
No, I think that is a good expose.
All right, there we go. That is session 0.
All right, thank you, everyone. I hope to see you all soon for episode 4. I'm looking forward to it personally. I know Riley's got a whole bunch of new quests for me to have to try and survive, so it's going to be fun. But next time you will be seeing Kana, Kale, and Tukra take their first full adventure together.
All right. Have a good night, y'all.